So, I just realized I made a 2.5 hour video talking about how I used to hang out with these two crazy people and I played a role-playing game with them. And I also, have talked about these people before at length. And I just got chewed out by Mamoto saying, what's the frickin' point of, giving them an alias when people can already figure out who they are? It's Robin and Jason, by the way. It's not really Rachel and Jared. I even fuck up in the middle of the video. And I'm starting to think this whole, role-playing war stories idea is a really bad idea. But you know me. I'm going to power through. Welcome back to another episode of Role-Playing War Stories. On a side note, I've been watching a lot of Firefly lately, and that's a great show. If you haven't, go watch Firefly. If you haven't watched it yet, it's one of Joss Whedon's finest works. It's a great science fiction show. It's boundlessly entertaining. One season, beautiful. Also, great movie that comes along with it, and great comic books that are part of that universe too. And a role-playing game that Spoonie hates, but again, fuck Spoonie. It's not the best role-playing game ever, but it's if you like this universe, you can play it in D20. You can play it in D20 with your barbarian and your cyberpunk modern D20, future D20 character, if you are so inclined. What was I talking about? Okay, so we're going to do another War Stories episode. Once again, we're going to be talking about Jared, also known as Jason. And this is another story involving him and how crazy he is. But in order, I'm going to try to make this a lot shorter than last time. This is going to be, I need to give a little bit of setup. I don't want to go on for 2.5 hours like I did last time. I don't know what's wrong with me. But basically, in order to set up this one, I do need to inform you about a pre-existing role-playing game that is, that not a whole lot of people remember. The older set of role players probably know about this game, and it's really good. And so, if nothing else, is an introduction to this game. And this game is of course, TORG, also known as the other role-playing game. When Jason and I were hanging out, one of the games that we that we started, I was getting into. Let's talk about another person I know. There's a friend of mine, David. Who me and other Josh met hanging out at the comic book store. And David was a huge fan of TORG and got me into it and I think he let me borrow the first set of books, and then I lost contact with them, and now I guess they're mine, and now I can't even find them, so it's for Christmas, I think I need to track down David and get him a whole new set. But, find him on eBay or something like that. But anyway, he introduced me to this, and the premise behind TORG is really good. You can find the PDFs available on, it's changed names. It used to be, Remuse. It's now, I think, called the Trove, which has got a bunch of, PDFs of older RPGs in it. You can find pretty much all the books for it on it. But basically it was, it had role-playing games and novelizations. The point of TORG, or the other role-playing game, is that, it was a kind of multi-genre premise. The guys that made this role-playing game were I want to have a fantasy setting and a cyberpunk setting and science fiction. I want to have put all different types of genres together in one game. And they came up with a central plot that the idea is that present-day Earth is being invaded by multiple alternate dimensions, and each one of those dimensions represents a different type of genre. Each one of those dimensions is effectively ruled over by some kind of evil ruler with incredible powers, and they are known as possibility raiders. The idea is that what exists in the universe is the entire struggle all struggles in the universe are a struggle between nothingness and the void and possibility. All was darkness, all was nothing, all was void until possibilities showed up, and the void wanted to be filled with what was possible, but threatened to destroy it by trying to absorb it. And from there, the Big Bang occurred, and everything that could exist in our universe or any other universe is possible. So the idea is possibility, or what is possible, is an energy form one can feed on and draw from. Which, of course, if you get enough of it, anything's possible, and you could become like a god. So the rulers of these various dimensions are what are known as the possibility raiders. And the world that has the most potential for possibility is the Earth. So modern day Earth suddenly one day is invaded en masse by a bunch of these other dimensions and the possibility raider rulers that are in charge of them. and they are all trying to absorb the energy of the Earth and absorb the possibilities of the Earth. And the one who they're all competing with each other. They're not necessarily their invasion is only they're only allied with each other in terms of let's agree to invade this world at the same time. But beyond that, they're competing with each other, so they are warring with each other as well. Whoever can absorb the most possibilities will basically become an entity known as the TORG, which is a godlike being. And kind of the big bad of the whole thing is actually the Gaunt Man, who's the ruler of the horror reality, who's a big, scary-looking gaunt dude who dresses like a cowboy. And basically very huge chunks of the world are invaded. Like, just one day, we're minding our own business, and then all of a sudden, England is invaded by trolls and dwarves and dragons. United States, they're invaded by a fantasy world. The United States is invaded by a sort of sort of like kind of a caveman dinosaur adventure fantasy type thing. So it's like we're suddenly invaded by lizard men and dinosaurs. Again, like Indonesia and like the South Pacific Islands are invaded by this horror reality. There's a bunch of demon cyborgs that show up at one point. There's the Tharkol that they're a part of this too. A bunch of crazy shit happens. That are all just like Africa is taken over by a pulp reality, which is ruled by a mummy version of Doctor Doom known as Doctor Morbius. That's a pulp fantasy reality. Two of the really cool and kind of complex ones are you have the cyber papacy, where Central Europe is invaded by a alternate version of the Catholic Church ruled by an evil cybernetic pope, and like that world also that world's like a fusion of cyberpunk and magic, because magic exists in that world, but it's very like gruesome, demon summoning horror magic type stuff, like witches and all sorts of things like that. Asia is invaded by Nippon Tech, which is a reality which is kind of like a modern. It's a fusion of like it's an intrigue and like kind of spycrafty setting, with a slightly advanced technology. They got laser guns and things like that. But at the same time, they also have like kind of traditional Japanese stuff. They have martial artists and ninjas and samurais and things like that too. That invades that world. And then other things happen too. They found out a couple, like the Tharkol, the cyber demons were like something they decided to throw in like later. Other realities invaded too. Like once this all went down, a bunch of aliens showed up. And it's like, hey, we know about these guys. We know about the possibility invaders. We're gonna help you. And like the aliens came to help us out. But by doing that, like we're now exposed to this other realm, which is just deep space and aliens and sci-fi stuff. And then I think we discovered like an underground world, which is like kind of a Hollow Earth expedition, like pulp adventure type world where there's like this hidden underground jungle world and whatnot. All sorts of cool stuff. And the other thing too is like these realities not only are they being invaded by crazy stuff, but they're bringing their reality to them. So, for example, when the fantasy world invades England, Isle, okay, we start getting attacked. Like the English start getting attacked by dragons and trolls and shit, and so naturally they pull out guns and tanks and click, click. Guns don't work. Modern technology does not work anymore. Magic rules in that reality. Likewise, in the United States, not only did all of our technology just stop working, and we got invaded by this crazy jungle and dinosaurs, but also the magic of the Isle Kingdom, that doesn't work over there. The only thing that works in that reality is shamanistic magic. And so every spot has different rules and boundaries. And so there's still parts of the Earth that are still like normal. And it's possible you effectively have to do like a will save or something like that to kind of bring your reality. If I want to use magic in the Living Land, which is the dinosaur-filled United States, I have to like pass like a crazy will save to get my magic to work, and I can't get it to work. It just doesn't work. But like essentially, it's possible for your player character to either be an ordinary person from Earth who's like thrown into this craziness and either has to like invest in the powers of the various worlds in order to defeat the possibility raiders. Like you go to Isle to learn magic or shamanistic traditions from the Living Land. You get cybernetics from the cyber papacy. You get also like, or you become like a pulp superhero from like the Nile Empire is what the pulp setting is based off of. You either like gain powers from the realities that are there, or you can be a pre-existing character from those realities that is pulled over. Because again, like, the rulers of those worlds are bad guys, but those worlds, those individual worlds, have their own, like, history and complex history, and you know, and the people there are just people. They don't like the vast majority of the people. There are plenty of good people in those worlds who do not like the possibility raiders either, and would happy to see them go on. So we wind up like the dwarves and the elves of Isle like team up like humans. Humans of Earth. We will ally with you, and a bunch of cyborg like rebels from the Cyber Papacy is like, hey, we know all about the Cyber Pope. He's a piece of shit. We got your back. It's like all these different, this whole, like, it becomes this big, crazy war known as the Possibility Wars. And it's a really cool setting. It's a really cool system. It's kind of designed to be more like I think you have to use, like, a set of... I keep dropping my mic. You keep on having to... Oh, mic drop. Yeah, mic. I'm dumb. You have to, like, have, like, a set of cards that, like, can give you different advantages while you're playing the game. And the whole idea is it's supposed to be set up like a movie. And so, like, you can, like... There's, like, one card that enables you to dramatically sacrifice yourself in order to save everybody else. There's all different types of, like, cards you can pull to, like, to change the story, like, in the player's favor and whatnot. So, so it's really, really fascinating. So we were running that. I was running that with Jason and a lot of the other people I was hanging out with. Alex and Bob. Those aren't their real names, but whatever. I'll spare them. I've already talked about Jason and Robin and how I don't like them. So it's like, I don't know what it was. Again, I like, before I recorded that story before with Oxenius and everybody, and it was like, I just felt like I was probably maybe revealing too much information. But again, it's already, I've already said Malmoto's real name and Davis's real name a million times. It's like, what's the fucking point? So I'm not gonna say their last names. It's there. So that might help. But anyway, I was playing it with, while Jason and I and the other guys were friends. It was like we were playing this, and I had a pretty good time running it. I had a pretty good time running it with him. So that's again, I had good times with these people, even though things didn't necessarily work out in the end, and some of them be super crazy, and I don't want to hang out with them anymore. We had some good times, and TORG was one of them. We finished TORG, and Jason was super into TORG. He loved TORG, and we would play it like a bunch, and I was using, like, this is like, when I first started out with role-playing games, I was super lazy. I took one look at Dungeons & Dragons and all the rules and whatnot, and I think a lot of people getting into role-playing has had this problem. It's like, I've heard, like, even, like, I'm such a whore for Red Letter Media. Like, the moment, like, Macaulay Culkin started, like, popping up on their show, they advertised his YouTube page, and I checked it out, too. I heard some of, his podcast with his friend, and Macaulay Culkin, by the way, just like sounds like a really cool dude. It's just, I mean, I've always felt so. I've always, I grew up with his movies. I grew up with Home Alone and all that, and the Page Master. I actually just beat like Page Master for the Super Nintendo like a month ago. So, on my little emulators. But like, McCulk's cool, and like he was talking on one of the podcast episodes. I was listening to him, just like. He's such an 80s and 90s kid. He's just cool. It's like he's like into wrestling, he's into comics and stuff like that. He's like got some good taste. And he was talking about like how he's got friends that are into role-playing games, and he would like the idea of maybe just like sitting down and telling stories with his friends. He just doesn't like the math. And that's true. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles into getting into role-playing games is that the systems are the crunch is, I think, what turns a lot of people away, and it's what keeps it in each market. People don't want to do the math. The advantage of other Josh's system is there is no math. Now, Malmoto would point out that as a result, it's an insanely easy system, and like, oh, well, anybody can do anything. It's like, and it's like, yeah, but it's like when we're just kind of sitting around. When we were sitting around in high school, just like, hey, we want to do a role-playing game, but I don't want to do a whole lot of math. We just want to tell a story. And his game in particular was based on like comic book crossovers. Look, I'm Spider-Man. And it's like, all right, well, cool. You're Spider-Man. You're gonna go fight Doctor Doom today, and I got a story for you. And it's like, cool. We would just play it, and that's the advantage of that system. You could just up and play. So. Back in the day, I didn't even bother to learn TORG system, and I don't know. I actually do want to go back and actually read the TORG system and see if I can actually like run it properly. But we just used other Josh's system. That's what we did, and that was like just for simplicity's purposes. And he played a lot of characters, and I remember like it was kind of a meat grinder. I killed. I set up rules where basically I could either kill a player, or I could like knock them out, and it's like and being knocked out and being alone with nobody to back you up triggers like an end game. It's like your character's not necessarily dead, but like you're out of the action. You're out of the action, and you got to pick somebody else. It's like the character you effectively failed your mission. You're not necessarily dead, but you're like you're beaten, and maybe your character can come back later on. So I effectively like I killed or KO'd a lot of the party. And I think there's also a game where, like, even if that wasn't the case, a lot of times, like, the party would just, like, I don't like playing this character anymore, I'm going to play somebody else. So there was a lot of that going on. There's a lot of, like, I'm going to play this character for 5 minutes and retire them, which I got a lot of out of all of them. Now Jason played the most, so Jason did that a lot. I wound up, like, killing or KOing his characters quite a bit, which I'm a bit proud of, if I do say so myself. But once again, I got to let people play whatever they want, and, it's Jason's character that he kept bringing back over and over again. For those of you familiar with especially older editions of Magic the Gathering, is the Soulless One. The Soulless One is a card, it's a zombie avatar, and it has the power and toughness of the combined total of every zombie in play in Magic the Gathering. And other than that, there's no real backstory on this character. It's just a monster. It's a big, scary, badass looking... It kind of looks like Venom. He's like bald, he's got lights of teeth, and he's like, ah! And, but it's like this big, bald monster zombie that, like, the more zombies are around, it just gets, like, bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we established about it, and it's like he gets more powerful the more zombies he has around him. And since essentially the character's kind of a blank slate, we started coming up with ideas for, like, maybe he's like the avatar of the zombie god, and he's manifested on the earth around the time Possibility Raiders are invading, and he's trying to build he's doing what he does. He's building like armies of zombies, and we it's not specifically said in the card that he can do this, but we had this idea. It's like, okay, if you're the avatar of the zombie god, you have dominion over zombies. So I figured, like, this guy can just go up to dead bodies or go to a graveyard, snap his fingers, and cause everybody in the graveyard to rise up, and there's his army. Which, of course, the moment he does it, boom, makes him, like, jacked. And he has ability to, like, transmute zombies. So, like, one thing he did a couple times with this character was he specifically created specific zombies from Magic the Gathering. So there's another card called the Noxious Ghoul, and the Noxious Ghoul, like, gives off this foul-smelling gas that weakens opponents. It gives, like, I think, like, -3/-3 to, like, other creature, like a target creature. So it weakens other creatures, and then it can attack them, or, like, yeah, it doesn't have to tap to do this, if I recall. Yeah, so he created a Noxious Ghoul, and, like, that was, like, one of his minions. So he started playing this character, and I disagreed with how he played the character. This was like, I guess Jason's, like, well, not his first, but one of Jason's edgelord characters. This was like, I very much disagree with his interpretation of this character, and even he at the end disagreed with how he did it. But basically, it's like, I always imagined that this character was just a very two-dimensional villain. Like, I figured, like, if I were playing the Soulless One is not going to talk to anybody. The Soulless One is going to walk up to people and rip their faces off, and then raise them as zombies, and just... The Soulless One's dialogue was going to be, "Rah!" That was it. He's a monster. And he's a zombie avatar. He could talk, but it's not going to be... He's not going to have anything very nice to say. It's going to be like, you will serve me. You will join the masses of dead as the dead rule the world. Something very, like... He's a walking zombie apocalypse. That's the way he should be. And so if he does talk, he should be very much like a supervillain. Very, like, you know... he started bouncing back and forth on the motivation of this character. Whereas, like... He started off the game... I started off, like, in, like, Japan. And he was, like, on an island that had, like, a cemetery on it. And he made a bunch of zombies. And he wound up going to Japan and started attacking this one corporate building and started fighting this one Japanese corporation that was, like... That was discovering that, that Nippon Tech was invading, that Kanawa, the Possibility Raider of that world, was invading. And so he's wanting to get, like his zombie... It's like zombies versus, like, Yakuza, basically. Essentially is what the game started off with. And he was very, like, he was very much a typical supervillain. He was very much just like, I raise an army of zombies. I think he had them construct themselves into a boat and float across to the mainland. So he's, like, riding on this boat of zombies. They land on the beach and immediately start killing people. They immediately start attacking and biting people and going full zombie apocalypse. And then, like, he gets captured, and then they trap him, like, in this, like, this cage, and, like, he gives this... he gives like the corporate head this line of bullshit. Oh, I just want to find a place for my people. Like he starts treating zombies like they're some oppressed minority, and it's just like I just want a place for my people, the zombies, where we won't be persecuted and killed for being who we are. I think he was like ripping off World of Warcraft pretty hardcore. He was like trying to do like the like a sympathetic Forsaken, where it's like, oh, we want to be left alone and whatnot, and we want to live in peace and go off and be zombies and be at peace, which is total bullshit, because if you know anything about World of Warcraft, you know the Forsaken are assholes. And it's like, and they're typical, like they're like straight up evil. It's like, I guess it's possible to be a sympathetic Forsaken, but it's like they eat people and they're bent on conquest. Their plan is to just like eat and kill they're like the worst. They're the most evil faction of the Horde. They're like the main thing that makes the Horde evil. Like, the Orcs are sympathetic. The Taurens are sympathetic. The Goblins are sympathetic. Like, but they're like the one to like, yeah, we're dripping evil. They're the main reason why the Horde are bad guys. Or you could argue the Horde are bad guys. It's like, everything else about them is like, you can like, yeah, they're not so bad once you get to know them, except for the fucking Forsaken, who get a pass because zombies are cool. So it's like he was totally doing that shit. So then he was going to be like a zombie messiah, and he kept changing motivations. Then it was like he was doing that thing that I talked about, like with in Haunted, where the whole flying up Anubis's ass thing. It's like he gets very when he starts losing, he starts like getting very like childish in how he fights. Like, he tries to humiliate people. Like, I think at one point I cut his torso off his legs. Somebody, I forget who he was fighting, but he got his torso cut off, but he was still alive because he was a zombie. So like, he deliberately picked up his lower half by his legs and whacked his enemy in the face with his ass, and he was deliberately doing that, trying to humiliate them. And it was like that was like his intent, and he admitted later that was his intention. So he kept on bouncing back with his character. He started doing this thing too, which I started getting annoyed, and I vowed I will never allow this to happen again. Where he started turning this character into a giant Gary Stew. Where I had him like find like he went off and would like find like a mage. He went off and found like a mage and like learn, and it's like, I want to learn and study magic. And then he would quit the game. He would quit playing this character and play another character, and have like the Soulless One go off and study magic for a while he was playing someone else and learn magic. And I let him do that. So then later he would get bored with that character after a certain amount of time, and come back as the Soulless One, and now the Soulless One is like an epic level wizard all of a sudden. He would basically cheat. He would basically, and again, this system, Other Josh's system is basically a classless system, so a lot of the stuff is contextualized, so it's like, he can all of a sudden come back and say, oh, this is character creation now. Now I'm an epic level wizard. So he started Gary Stewing his fucking character, like, hard. I had him do this one random encounter where he met like a character that was kind of like a cross between like Vegeta and Akuma. He was like some kind of like Dragon Ball Z type martial artist who's like, I'm so good at martial arts that I can punch planets in half. He met this guy on an island, and he's like, I want you to train me. And it was like train me in the martial arts, and it was like okay, and he like won the role. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? So he trained him in like superhuman DBZ martial arts, and so he started learning how to do that shit. And then and the moment that happens, he's like, okay, I quit playing this character and play somebody else. And like, I let him get away with it. And I was like really annoyed by it. It was like, and I vowed I'm never going to do that again. No. You want to train, you want advantages from that, you need to roleplay that. You need to actually go through the process of like leveling up. If we're using a class-based system, or if we're not, you need to, there needs to be a better explanation. You can't just like farm. I'm not letting you like Facebook game this, where you can just like farm power for your character. It was one of my teething sessions in learning how to be a DM, where it's like, yeah, don't let people do that. Do not let people do that shit. And hardcore cheating. And so now, like, the Soulless One comes back, and now he knows like tons and tons of magic, and he's like got superhuman martial arts bullcrap, and all this shit. And he's like this stupid Gary Stew character, and he's a total dumbass. Typical Gary Stew, Mary Sue writing. He's stupid. He makes dumb decisions. He acts like a doofus. It's like, yeah, he's really powerful, no personality, or no likable personality. And he wound up becoming a joke at a certain point. But one of the phases that Soulless One went through was Soulless One decided to be a mad scientist. So at one point he finds himself in the Orosh setting. Orosh is the horror setting. and basically it's in Indonesia and the South Pacific Islands, and it's the culture of the Orosh dimension is very like a Victorian England colonial imperialist attitude, and like now that they were there, they were like, oh, these poor South Pacific Islands, these poor Indonesian people, they're these poor natives that they need us to civilize them. It's like, so once again in like 2003, like a bunch of white people are showing up in the South Sea Islands, you know, starting to carve up the South Pacific, and saying, oh, they need our intervention, they need our help. But there's more to it than that, because the Orosh reality also is the classic Hammer horror, and a little bit of Lovecraft-like horror, a little bit of cosmic horror, but mainly classic horror setting with zombies and vampires and werewolves and ghosts. And it's very subtle too, where it's like everything's fine in Orosh. Everything's fine until like night falls and you're wandering in the woods by yourself. And then after a while, after you maybe see something in the distance, you maybe hear something to your left, then when you least expect it, you know, your heart's already been ripped out by the monster that snuck up behind you. It's very, very subtle horror is the way Orosh is supposed to be played. And it's, of course, ruled by the Gaunt Man, who is this mysterious, malevolent entity that is appears like a gaunt human, kind of like the tall man from Phantasm. Yeah, and it's you never quite know what the Gaunt Man is. You never quite 100% know what he's all about. And I had to come up with some crazy ideas of how like his powers work. But yeah, that was the thing. So that was what was going on there. He wound up there. He wound up hanging out in the graveyard because, you know, it's his power source, and he started like, he was there where like, okay, good, I got tons of dead bodies, I can raise zombies. And I think at some point, the Gaunt Man just kind of sought him out, and it's like, okay, you are very appropriate for this world. It's like, why don't you work for me? Why don't you help me take over? Help me take over Earth, and help me become the TORG, and you know, I'll set you up nice here. You're a powerful monster. You're very appropriate for this location, and like so he basically kind of made the Gaunt Man kind of cut a deal with him, and the Gaunt Man wound up giving him Gospog seeds. So now again, the whole premise of this series is that truth is stranger than fiction, and that sometimes I have roleplayed with some weird fucking people and had very weird experiences roleplaying it. So don't worry, we're gonna get back to reality in a minute. I'm almost 30 minutes, and I'm already going on too long. Yeah, that's typically my show. So what the fuck are Gospog seeds? Well, the Gospog seeds are a seed that is native to the Orosh world, and that the Gaunt Man has access to. And to be sporting, at the beginning of the competition, the Gaunt Man gave all the head possibility raiders a bunch of Gospog seeds to do with as they please. And just to make things interesting, because he does have a sense of fair play, at least a little bit of one. And he wanted to, like, here's a straight up advantage. We're like, I have these, now you have them too. What Gospog seeds are is that they're these seeds that what you're supposed to do is you plant them inside of a dead body. You plant them in a dead body, and you bury it, and then after a day, the dead body comes out of the ground, and it's no longer a dead body, it is a plant person. It is a monstrous plant person that does your bidding. And the thing about Gospogs are that they can be planted multiple times. So, if you don't like the first one are just generic plant people that do your bidding and will kill people for you and whatnot, and just do whatever you want. You plant them multiple times, they get more powerful. They get stronger, they get different like kind of plant powers and stuff like that. And the upshot of Gospogs are, if you plant them in different realms, they have different effects. So if you plant them, like, you know, if you plant them in Isle, the Gospogs of Isle have more fantasy accoutrements as opposed to the Cyber Papacy, which has its own unique accoutrements to that realm. I didn't do a whole lot of research on what all the differences with the Gospogs are, but like one I noted in particular was like the Nippon Tech Gospogs. The Nippon Tech, what Kanawa, or I think 3313, I think is his real name. Everybody in that world actually has a number as opposed to a name. He only claims to be Kanawa. He claims to be a humble Japanese businessman named Kanawa when it comes to our reality. What he decided to do was he decided to use... he started incorporating the Gospogs with cybernetic and technology and kind of like power suits. So his Gospogs look like robot samurai. And but underneath they're like crazy plant people, and he's planted them multiple times, and they get more and more powerful each time he goes. So that's like what he does. So that's what the Gospog are. So he's like, here's some Gospog. Go ahead if you want. You can have some Gospog to play with, and it's like, and he explains how the Gospog work to Solus One. So like, well, have you ever tried putting a Gospog inside of a zombie? And the Gaunt Man's like, yeah, you know, as a matter of fact, no, I've never tried that. You're welcome to try it out if you want. Go ahead, knock yourself out. So at this point, Solus One becomes a mad scientist, and he decides to start. He goes from. This is a character that has no clear motivation. Like, basically, Jason has no idea what he necessarily wants to do with this character whatsoever. So, like, he's gone from typical, monster, kill, eat people, zombie apocalypse, to, now I'm a mad scientist. And it's like okay, you're a mad scientist now. So, what he decided to do was he took a zombie. He took, like, a lady zombie in particular. He took a female zombie. He implanted it with a Gospog seed, and he's like, okay, lady zombie, get in the ground. Like, lady zombie gets in the ground. He covers her with dirt, buries her, waits a day, sees what happens. Day passes. Instead of normally just kind of crawling out like calmly like they normally do, instead this time the Gospog like bursts out of the ground like rah, roaring and uncontrollable. And it's like a feral, monstrous, rows of sharp teeth. Imagine, like, again, for those of you who've been to Halloween Horror Nights, like, Seeds of Extinction plant monster. Just pops up out of the ground, like, rah! And, like, talking and, like, fuck you, Solus One. It's like this, like, what happened here was apparently, my idea was that, like, if you take a zombie and implant it with a Gospog seed and put it in Orash, the creature that comes out is very much, like, it winds up becoming, it winds up, like, regaining its sentience. It winds up regaining its sentience and wound up having being self-aware. And there was a couple creatures that we created this way, a couple like super Gospogs that were created in this way. And I kind of like it kind of forced me to be creative because I was like running. There was no rules in the book for what happens if you put a zombie like a Gospog seed in a zombie and sees what like there were no rules for that. At least not that I knew of. So I just had to come up with shit out of my just pull shit out of my ass, and I'm pretty proud. I'm proud of this. This first part of the story I am super proud of. Then it's going to get really scary, because not only is truth stranger than fiction, truth is scarier than fiction. We'll get there. So anyway, I was very proud of this. I was very proud of just kind of like, I was like totally new ground. I was like totally being creative, and like, I got to come up with something. My idea was that like, not only are they more feral and monstrous than a standard Gospog on first planting, they look completely different than a regular Gospog. They're more, but on top of that, because they're already they have a sort of false life and some basic animalistic instincts. The Gospog planting actually causes them to be full-on sentient and completely resistant to their master. They have free will, straight up. No, so like this thing like knows what he is. It's like you're the Solus One. Fuck you! Like, look what you've done to me. I'm a freak now. I'm this horrible freak monster. And this thing is pissed off and it starts attacking him. So he fights it for a little bit. And then after fighting for a little while, he tries talking it down. It's like, okay, look. If I plant you again, you might turn out something better. Why don't you? He winds up calming it down. So there's no way I'm a monster. I'm a freak. Why would I ever listen to you? It's like, well, why don't you just trust me? We'll put you in the ground one more time and plant you and see if you come out something better. And you might come out something better. It's like, well, okay, fine, I'll try that. So they do a second planting. So I'm like, all right, what the fuck is this thing gonna be if I plant it somewhere else? Not if I plant it somewhere else. That's something that happens later. What is this thing gonna be if I plant it in the ground a second time? Like, and I'm like racking my brain, like, what am I gonna do here? At the time, I was watching Farscape, which is again one of my favorite science fiction shows, and I'm a big fan of the character Zahn, who played by Virginia Hay, who I got to meet at Pensacon, which is cool. I was also watching, for the first time, Trigun. And I believe, like, the whole idea of the plants they're really like clones, but like but they're like a living power source. But like, when you say the word plant enough time, it puts in my head that you're a plant. You're a vegetable person. On top of that, like, you had, Farscape's. I like the idea that, like, Vasta Stampede had, like, that, like, super weapon that he, like, was able to, that really powerful, like, angel wing gun that he's able to put, like, a hole in the moon with. It's insanely powerful. And I was started thinking, well, maybe part of the reason why is because he's a plant. Maybe he's, like, naturally photosynthetic. And it's like, and again, I feel like a lot of Trigun is still, again, it's probably covered in the manga, but I think a lot of Trigun is still kind of, unsaid to the point where you could draw your own conclusions, especially since there are differences between the manga and the show. So I always thought the idea that, like, okay, well, maybe the deal with, like, Vash and knives is that they're humanoid plants. They're like these evolved alien genetically engineered plant people, and that they absorb energy photosynthetically and can discharge it out incredibly powerfully. There was that. There was also, again, I was watching Farscape. Farscape's sister show is, or as I like to call it, Farscape's retarded cousin. Lex was also on at the time. I think it was in its 4th season at the time. And you got the character of Laika, who's a plant lady who eats people, and is kind of a good guy, she's kind of dangerous too, and she's essentially Stanley's girlfriend in the show. And so I had plant people on the brain, and I'm thinking to myself, why don't I, I got all this stuff that's kind of inspiring me. Why don't I make why don't I have we're in like a horror setting, but why don't I it's supposed to be like a subtle horror setting. Why don't I go like full anime here? Why don't I make, instead of this thing coming out of some kind of horrible monster, it comes out of something very, very beautiful. Very, very beautiful, like a really hot anime chick. But she's like really powerful. She's got really unique powers and abilities. And so what I had happen was, like, the Gospod comes out of the ground as a big flower pod. It opens up like Venus or Aphrodite. And in the center of it, there's this beautiful woman. There's this beautiful, like, anime plant lady. Vaguely Japanese in appearance, maybe like very like classic, like whatever your anime waifu is, just picture it, just boom, just gorgeous, like a 10 out of 10. But she's got, like, her body has like the closest thing she has for clothing is like obvious plant parts covering her body, like various subtle like flower and leaf accoutrements, like strangely colored like blue eyes, and she's very, very beautiful, and she's calm, she's rollful, she's happy with how she looks now. It's like, okay, I'm attractive now, that's cool. And she's very calm, and she's like a new life form, and she's like brand, like this is like but she's also like super intelligent, so she realizes it's like a robot turning on for the first time. It's like, wow, I've just been born, but I already like know a lot about the world and whatnot, but I've never experienced it, and so I had a lot of fun like making this, like Lal from Star Trek, Data's daughter. I had a lot of fun like creating this like new life form, and she was very beautiful and attractive, but like she had various, like, again, she had like plant powers. She could like turn her body into vines, or like, turn herself into trees, or have dominion over plants. And I imagine like one of her main powers is that like she could, her body would like create these like blossoms that would come out of her body, and that she was like a giant like photosynthetic battery. And she, by absorbing solar energy, she could discharge it as like a powerful solar blast. Nothing like less powerful as Vash the Stampede's Angel Wing, but like very much inspired by it, close to that. And if, again, she's still from a horror setting, so if things really get nasty, she turns into Audrey too. She turns into a giant, like, rah, like big crazy plant monster that eats your face. And that was my idea for her. And like, okay, so Soulless One is like, there you go, see, it turned out better. You're good. Like yes, I'm a new life form. Thank you. I like this form very much so. Like and they started, and like again, she's super calm now. She's super like, it's like old, like he's. Like, and he's asking. She's very much exploring the world for the first time, and she's trying to understand the world around her and whatnot. And it was like he's actually going like full like mad scientist, like mad like Dr. Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, or like, I guess, I don't know, caring Frankenstein, like where he's like he actually cares about his creation. It was like it's like, and she's trying to discover the world for the first time, and it's like, well, what should I call you? Well, I'm not sure. I came out of a giant rose. I'm a plant, so you may call me Rose. And so we called her Rose. And so this became... I'm really proud of this character. She was completely original. I was very happy crafting her. And she became a major NPC that eventually winds up joining up with the good guys. And the entire time just kind of discovering the nature of humanity and the nature of existence. Again, I have crossover shit, so I think I had like Dragon Ball Z characters running around. I had like fucking... For some reason, I think there was the Guild Master, is like this mysterious figure who is basically in charge of the human resistance on Earth. And I don't know all the details of what's in canon for TORG, or how she's supposed to be, but she's supposed to be a mysterious figure. And what I decided was she was like a really, she was a woman, and she was very wealthy, and she was heading up the human resistance. But she was also like a Renaissance woman. She was very, very capable, and like, she was like just a badass. She was like, she could fight hand to hand. She has guns, brilliant strategist. And my idea for her is that she had deliberately gone to each and every single realm and had found a way to master the powers of that realm. So like she gains like a cybernetic limb and some cybernetic prosthetics from Nippon Tech, no from the Cyber Papacy. She'd learned magic from Isle and shamanistic rituals from the Living Land. I think she developed like gave herself some level of superpowers like super strength and like energy attacks from like like she kind of made herself a superhero in like in the Mobius world. And I had ideas like and I think she could like turn into a vampire or like or something like that. My idea was and she knew like kung fu and stuff like that. Basically, she had essentially mastered every single major power that was in the various worlds that were invading, and she had gathered to and, like essentially I think another character, one of Jason's characters, Ray's, who was he was a human angel demon hybrid. It was an original character of his, like from some. It was like a setting full of Teflings, essentially, and that a Tefling long ago had seduced a powerful angel, and in full Mary Sue fashion, I think he wound up like making like the Tefling like a daughter of Mephistopheles, and like the angels the angel she seduced was Zafkiel the Watcher, the most powerful of the celestial Hemnabad. Like yeah, basically like she basically seduced like Michael, like Saint Michael or something like that. She basically seduced Jesus, who would like you'd think of all people like he'd be like I'm not falling for this. I'm not like it was I really like I think the worst thing we did writing wise in terms of Torg and the character of Ray's was his lineage. He started kind of like towards the end. He started like I was doing other role playing games involving like either D&D or I was using Mephistopheles from Dungeons & Dragons and Marvel Comics as a villain in some other role playing games I was doing. And so he kept on trying to like connect him to Mephisto, and I was thinking to myself like Mephisto wouldn't do that. Mephisto's smarter than that. Mephisto's not gonna like just no, fuck you. He started like roping his way into the. It was like, oh, you're really my grandfather, aren't you? And I was like, and at the time I was like, yeah. I'm like, maybe Mephisto was bullshitting him, but it was like he kept doing shit like that, which I didn't like. So I have to retcon that crap. But yeah. So like that character wound up teaming up with her, and I created like a sort of a strike team of characters that were like she recruited. And I was picking kind of random stuff, and I was another thing I was watching Dragon Ball Z and the Dragon Ball Z movies. So for some reason, Metal Cooler and Android 16 were on the team, and Metal Cooler was like a reluctant good guy. And I think the thing is it was like one Metal Cooler, like one like rogue, still alive Metal Cooler that Goku hadn't blown up, that was like I could destroy this entire planet if I want, but this Guildmaster lady has power over me, and I don't want to fuck with her. So she basically had like because of all the power she'd accumulated, she had a hold over him. So it's like, all right, so she's made it worth my while, and if I try to blow up or conquer your planet, she's gonna kill me, and she can. So I'm gonna play nice with you for now. So they had Metal Cooler as a good guy, but they were working with Android 16, and I think like she hooked up with Android 16 for a minute. She like wanted to. Yeah, I got my hot lady character laid because I'm a simple creature. I'm as bad as Frank Miller, folks. I'm shameless. I'm shameless. I like titties. So I had her get laid, and it was like she like bonked 16. It was like kind of like it was like two androids discovering love for first time. It's like would you like what is this sex? Do you want to try the sex? And so I had something like that happen. Anyway, the only reason I'm bringing that up is that like eventually. Jason created a love interest for her, which was basically him. He created essentially Soulless One had made another zombie. He took the Noxious Ghoul and stuck the seed inside the Noxious Ghoul and dumped that guy in the ground and repeated the process. And he created basically a male equivalent of this character with red hair because he has red hair that he called Thorn. Anyway, get it there. Like, yeah, he made a character called Thorn, and her name is Rose, and it's Rose and Thorn. Anyway, yeah. So it's like the guy's like a carbon, like he's essentially like a copy of the Rose character, and has pretty much the same powers and abilities. I think he did make thorns, like he would like shoot thorns or make spikes come out of himself as an attack. He would do things like that. Was kind of neat. It was like other than being like an author avatar of Jason himself, it was like the character was fine, and they didn't hook up immediately. They were like some weird sort of like pseudo brother and sister type thing, which isn't weird at all. But like, yeah. So he like wound up. I wound up doing a whole thing where like the Gaunt Man started like using him as like was like there's a storyline in TORG called the Still World, where the Gaunt Man actually causes the entire Earth to stop rotating, and it actually alters the setting even further as like certain locations on the Earth have permanent daylight and other locations have permanent night, and eventually like one site burns and one site freezes. And so I wound up running that plot line in the storyline, and my idea was that he had this big crazy machine that was doing it, and he was using Thorn, like a Thorn had run into a couple of monsters that worked for the Gaunt Man, and I think one of them was like a Cinnabite. I made an original Cinnabite with like chains, which is kind of cool. And they kicked the crap out of him. I beat him. I like knocked him out for the session, and then it's like, all right, you've lost. You can't play that character anymore. And my idea was that he was being they captured Thorn and was using Thorn as a power source, or they were using them. They were using both Thorn and Rose as like power sources for this thing, and they were using them like to power the machine in order to cause the Still World and like for him to harness possibility energy and whatnot. And then eventually the other heroes found it and they broke him out and they defeated the Gaunt Man. It was a whole thing. Yeah, so like they eventually the Thorn and Rose joined the good guys. They developed some kind of weird technique where they could fuse into a single entity, which I always imagined it was like the creature from the Tool the Tool like Schism video. I know the pieces fit. It was like when the male and the female part like merged together. Like, I know the pieces fit. I always imagined it looked like that, something weird like that. But like they could fuse into like a hybrid plant person, and they stayed with the good guys until the end of the story. And then eventually they hooked up. Like they became lovers. He had them like way off in the sunset, and so it's like, all right, fine, whatever. So Thorn and Rose hooked up. It was like they were like, you know, the male and the female of the species, and we'll produce a new species of plant people and whatnot. There was another character where he decided to keep doing this experiment, but with Gospogs in different realms, because in different realms are different. So he took a zombie and put it inside of put a Gospog seed inside of it and buried it, but he buried it in Nippon Tech. And so I had to come up with a new idea. So I came up with this new, more monstrous looking version where it was like it had no eyes and rows of sharp teeth and kind of like blades or claws for hands and like spikes coming off of it, and it was very intelligent and kind of greedy. It was very intelligent and greedy and like had very like essentially had like it was like super greedy because it was born in Nippon Tech, but it was also super intelligent and like would shapeshift and look human in order to get its way. And I made it a villain, and we couldn't decide what to call it. And again, it was like his son, so he decided to name it Venom because the mouth looked kind of like Venom, like from Spider-Man. And I was kind of annoyed by that. I think I eventually called him like Poison Thorn or something like that because I was trying to come up with something semi-original. Is like so I called him like Venom or Poison Thorn or something like that. Eventually Poison Thorn, since Venom is a licensed character. And the idea was like he was actually interested in like accumulating wealth and power because he'd been formed in Nippon Tech, and that was like greed and accumulation of power and resources is big in that world. So he was actually very interested in starting to play. He was this monster who could like make himself look human and was interested in playing the business game and getting involved in the possibility wars on that front. And he eventually just became a villain and wound up fighting the party and eventually got killed. I think we decapitated him. That's how we killed him. And I think I also made him like, again, I don't know. Jason and I did. The more I think about like Jason and I had a lot of really weird fucking erotica shit in our games. And it's like no wonder Oxtenius doesn't want to get into this. But it was like I think like yeah he also like he was like he wanted to be like kind of a Japanese like playboy. So he wanted money and women and whatnot. So he got like a bunch of women to go home with him. But like he started. The sex was weird because he's like a plant. We would like I would full tentacle hentai there. He was like he like would like they were like in like covered in slime and like in weird fucked up pods and stuff like that. It got kind of dark, got kind of weird. I imagine this villain was kind of fucked up. So those are the plant monsters. Those are like the super Gospogs I made in TORG. Why am I telling you this? Okay, again, truth is stranger than fiction. So. That was what was going on in TORG. Cutting to reality. Again, me, Robin, and Jason were kind of interested in magic and ghost hunting and shit like And I found it very interesting, like hearing hearing Mike Solcosta talk about like ghost adventures and kind of like the levels of all the psychological shit that's at play in terms of people that allegedly have had supernatural experiences. And I think one of the things he pointed out is that, like, you know, you'll have some, like, you know, some people go see something that's, like, allegedly haunted, right? And, like, and then someone faints. And, like, someone, oh my god, I was near this haunted object and I fainted. And they're fainting because they want attention. And if they faint and people address them, they fainted in the presence of the supernatural thing, that means that they're special. So there's all these different layers, and then, like, people start believing them, and there's, like, this collective delusion, and there's all these little interesting layers of what's going on here. I think I feel like I personally came in touch with this full throttle with Jason. And essentially what happened is they were hanging out with Robin, and Robin's friend, who will remain unnamed because he really isn't involved in this, and if I can avoid saying his name, I will. I've already mentioned Robin and Jason like a million times, so. They were hanging out, and they were having a bonfire, and just, like, it's something like Robin likes to do. Just every now and then she has little bonfires and whatnot, just chills out. And they were all hanging out together, and Robin's friend is supposedly very spiritually sensitive as well, and can sense things. So Jason just starts coming at him, and just starts like, dude, like, can you like do like a reading on me? Can you like sense something around me? He starts like deliberately asking this guy to read him and to figure out what's on him and what spirits are on him or whatnot. And really they just kind of want to sit there and just chill out and have a good time. And he just comes out and just wants them deliberately to, like, you know, see if there's like ghosts on him, something like that. Probably because he wants to feel special. He wants to say that he's special and he has ghosts on him or something like that. So they're like, all right, fine. And they're hanging out, and he's looking at him, and it's like he's thought, like, maybe sort of kind of he sensed there was like some kind of presence on him. And it, like, yeah, you know, it's like a little girl. It's like a little girl. There's a little girl on him, and Jason's like, oh, there's a little girl following me around. It's like yeah. And so Jason took this, like, they thought they might have seen a little girl. They thought they might not have, and it's some spirit that's following him around. It's not that big a deal. And it's not harming anything. It's a little girl spirit. A little girl ghost is, like, you know, near you and whatnot. So Jason takes this way fucking too far, and he starts going on and on about how, like, oh my god, it's like wow, that he starts talking about this thing constantly, and starts thinking about, like, this is a big deal that this little ghost, this little girl's following him around, and he starts assuming that, like, you know, he starts claiming. So then I'm trying to work. I was like working at, like, Quiznos or something like that at the time, and it was like, you know, or like at Sears, and he's coming up to me like in the restaurant, and talking to me about, like, oh my god, Robin told me about this thing that's on me, that the spirit I had that's on me, and I said, like, I've been talking to it. He starts talking about he's been talking to this thing, and he feels like it's been answering him, and he claims that, like, he started thinking that it was like that, like, it's someone he knew from a past life, and it's like it was like he started talking this thing like this person, whoever it was like a lover of his from a past life. Mind you, this is a little girl robot, a little girl ghost that he started, like, attaching himself to and started claiming was a previous lover that he was trying to get, like, sexually invested in. And allegedly it was like a past lover of his. And he started basically dating a person who is not there. He started basically dating a ghost. He started dating someone that's just invisible and isn't real. And just, like, you know, and started telling me about it. And I feel like I'm going out of my mind, because I'm trying. And again, this is me. Now this. Let's go back to about me being young and stupid. As I was trying to study this stuff. I was trying to try to listen to people and, like, see if there was any truth to what they're going on here. So a lot of what I was doing was, I was talking to people, and I was not, like, I was assuming they were telling the truth right off the bat. Whether they were or not, or whether they were crazy or not. I was like, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is actually happening to them. That this is actually happening to him. It's like, alright, so I'm trying to be accepting of all this, and the more I'm listening, the more he goes on, I just feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm going into a rabbit hole, like I'm spiraling down, like, because what's really subconsciously, oh my god, he's dating someone that's not really there, and I'm trying to buy this. I'm trying to, like, buy this bullshit that he's fucking like trying to get me to swill. And I think just like there's like some higher level of common sense I had was screaming, "This is stupid. This is ridiculous." And it was like, yeah, he was basically like dating an invisible person that's not there. He was dating his imaginary friend. And it kept getting worse and worse, and it was like he was going on. They had like some past life together, and he wound up getting like he wound up going to like a yard sale, and he got a little picture of a attractive woman, like some painting, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is you, this is you." He started saying to the ghost, and it's like, this is you in a past life. He started like assuming that that song, "Don't They Know It's the End of the World" is their personal song and whatnot, and they were lovers in a past life. This whole load of bullshit. And the moment I knew 100% categorically that this whole thing was bullshit was he then told me what the name of the girl was. And he said like he was talking to her, and he was like, you know, he was having a conversation with her, and he was like, "Well, what do I call you?" And I said, "Well, you already know what to call me." She said, "It's like, you know, like you're Rose." And he starts calling this thing Rose, and I lose my mind. And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, her name's Rose. Her name's totally Rose." And it's like, okay, Jason, you're calling her Rose because I created in a fucking role-playing game, in a fictional setting, a character named Rose, which you got attached to, and your character got attached to in-game. That became your waifu. And now your alleged past life girlfriend is just so happens to be named Rose. It just so happens to be a fictional character that I fucking made. Bitch be crazy. Bitch be crazy. Bitches be wildin'. Bitches be wildin' the fuck out. It just, yeah. So, the moral of the story is Jason is fucking nuts. Jason started dating an invisible person that isn't real, that was deliberately named after a character that was fictional that I created in a role-playing game. And forever tainting that character for me, which I was very proud of. I was very proud of that original sort of anime concept, sci-fi concept I came up with this plant people. And it's forever ruined by the fact that, oh, she like his ghost, like, waifu became that. Not to mention, he was dating someone at the time. He was dating a real person who I thought was a delightful person. Way better than anything he deserved. Who was, I got to talk to. I got very friendly with. And like, we were, like, both, like, concerned. Like, it was like, she was like, yeah, he's just, like, she's like, I really care about Jason a lot, but he's fucking crazy. It's just really weird. And she noticed that it was this very aggressive stuff coming out of him. And he told her that shit. He told her that shit, that, like, well, I'm dating you, but, like, I also, like, you know, my soulmate is this invisible person that's not real. Shock of all shocks, that relationship didn't last. So, yeah, so, once again, people, if you roleplay with crazy people, you'll have some funny stories to tell other people, to tell your friends, and tell people on the internet. However, I don't advise it. Don't play with crazy. Even if, and you know, sometimes crazy comes up with good ideas for role-playing games. That's true. But it was like, it was driving me crazy. It was driving me crazy because it was like I was like sitting there, like, trying to hang out with this guy and trying to be friends with this guy who, it was like the more I hung out with this person, the more I got roped into his world, the more I got dragged into his rabbit hole. And I realized, no, this guy's nuts. Fucking nuts. And it's just like, don't hang out with crazy people. Don't. It's not good for you. Unless you're like a social worker and it's your job. But even then, it's like, just don't get wrapped up into their bullshit. It's like, again, and there's levels to this. There's levels. I honestly believe Jason's the type of person who is a bullshit artist who just believes his own shit. And it's like, and he ropes people into this kind of nonsense. And Robin is guilty of doing a lot of the same stuff. So, yeah, that's another episode of Role-Playing War Stories about how I made a cool character for a role-playing game, and the player that was playing said game decided to date it in real life because he's batshit. So, again, don't Don't hang out with crazy people. Don't hang out crazy. This is the Dread Pirate once again saying, stay scared. Stay very, very scared.